Hello and welcome to Pickles Garage. Today we're working on the Blazer, the 2021 Blazer. This is going to be similar for a handful of these Chevy vehicles. It is a little bit of a strange issue. It's going to be a little finicky with what I show you as well as what the fixes are. So let me go ahead and show you what it looks like. I'll close the door, get it started. Come on. So you're going to start seeing weird stuff like this. So it's going to freak out, and it was starting initially, but now it's not starting at all. So we're going to go through a couple different reasons why this is happening. Right now you're seeing steering assist is reduced. Drive with care. Dismiss that. It says change engine oil soon. I think that's unrelated on this issue. You are going to see volts. Looks like it's low. So this vehicle was driving, having no issues a couple days ago, and now it's showing 10.2 volts. So there's definitely some sort of battery drain, but you'll also see one of the other issues I was having was it was saying, okay, battery low, start vehicle, okay. Yeah. The other issue I was seeing was a error with the e-brake, and so it would have the brake symbol up here, and then when you tried to click the button for it, the parking brake here, it wasn't doing anything. So it is now engaging, which is nice, but before it was having the parking brake on, but then you couldn't turn it off. So let's go ahead and dive into some of the potential fixes for these issues. All right, so we're going to start under the hood. Now, the reason you're seeing a lot of these different electronic issues is because most of this is more or less tethered together. And so one faulty system kind of cascades into these other issues, and then you end up trying to track it down. Now, what we do know for a fact is that the battery was saying that it had low voltage. So I'm going to get a meter and check the battery first. With any of these issues, I would always start at the battery because that's going to be your easiest solve. Is bad connection point for your negative, or maybe a failing battery. Replacing that is going to be a lot easier than most else what I show you. But let's go ahead and figure out if the voltage is reading properly. All right, and so as you can see, you could buy these for 20 bucks. They're all over the place, but it is reading accurately for what I was seeing on the dash as about 10 volts, and it's showing a low battery. Now, couple things to address here. One, is it showing it's a low battery because that's my primary issue and I just need to replace the battery and then I won't have these issues, right? Because the low voltage is causing, bad grounds, bad power to the rest of the systems, and therefore it's giving me these faulty codes? Or is there a drain on the battery itself and that is leading to other issues? So I do want to put a charge on this and see if it will hold. I'm going to start with that, and then I'll go over some of the other issues that you may be having if your battery is in an okay shape. Okay, so I have this connected now to a charger. These are fantastic. I would highly recommend it if you don't already have one, but it's showing that it is charging. Typically, if the battery is bad, then you'll get clamps reverse / bad battery, right? That means that the system is being able to tell that it's not actually inputting charge. Now, I will say, just from a lot of experience with this thing, sometimes it'll say charging for, even an hour or so, and then you come back and it says it's a bad battery. So keep it in mind. If it says it right away, obviously, you know that, your battery is bad, but it might say charging and then still not work properly. So we're going to check voltage here after we run through a couple of the things. But naturally, you just have to hook it up, positive, positive, negative, negative. Now, the next thing to go over is you saw very briefly when I showed the dash that the parking brake was coming up with an alert, right? What they say can tend to happen is if the actual level on your brake fluid is low, then it could also signal some of those errors. Now, it's kind of funky to me that that would trigger such an event like that, having low brake fluid to then cascade into these other things. But when you have a vehicle that has a lot of different sensors, it just tends to happen. Now, from what you could tell, it is below max. I wouldn't call it low by any means, but it's definitely below max. So we're going to start by topping that off, and you can find your prescribed brake fluid type, because there is a difference. At you can look it up, or if you go into an AutoZone or O'Reilly's or whatever, they'll help you out with that as well. But I'm going to start by topping that off. Now, you might also be tempted to try and use one of these OBD scanners. They are extremely helpful, but in this case, just because it's clearly some sort of electronic gremlin, you're not really going to see a lot of check engine codes that you could find. The much more expensive ones, the ones that actually can read the computer and the different sensors and if they're functioning or not, they can be upwards of $1,000 or more. So most people don't have those, so I won't really go over that process. But again, I think that would be helpful in a way, but I think we can kind of narrow this down without using this. Now, the one main thing that you can do is go ahead and disconnect the negative side of your battery. What this is going to do is it's sort of going to reset everything. So I would start there as well, just so that, if you leave it off for about 5 to 10 minutes, then go ahead, reconnect it, and then hopefully everything will be clear and it'll be acting normal. If it's not, then again, we're kind of looking back towards this battery. There is one more thing I want to show you that you can check. I'm just going to show you where it is and what it looks like. But for the most part, it looks like the battery might be bad on this one. Okay, so this is going to be one more, I would call it a desperate attempt at finding your issue. This is probably going to be the last thing I would check. I don't think this is going to be common for most people, but of course it can be, especially if you live on a dusty road. But I am at the rear of the vehicle. I'm sliding under just because I didn't want to take off my rim here, but you'll see this cable that I'm following here with the camera coming down and then going back towards the rotor up there. What that is that is a wheel speed sensor, and there's one on all 4 sides of the vehicle. And so let's see if I can point it out right here, right back here. And so there's actually a nut right there, or a bolt rather, right here. And what you would do is you go ahead and loosen that, and you can pull this away. And what you would want to do is you'd want to go ahead and clean that sensor. So what they say can be an issue is if those get too dirty or dusty, they can give weird readings, and that can cascade a lot of those sensor issues. Again, this is going to be one of the most, I would say the last thing that you would check, just to make sure that you've covered all your bases, because this isn't going to be very common. But there is going to be one on all 4 rims, and in order to clean it, you just have to use one of these products. So something like this you can get at AutoZone, O'Reilly's, wherever, just a contact cleaner. Again, just because dust can get on the sensor itself, it could give weird readings on one of the tires or wheels going slower than the other ones, or just not giving any sort of reading, and that could cause those cascading issues. That's just one of the listed items to verify, but again, I would confirm with some of the other details I've gone over first. And then if you needed to replace them all together, you could find them on Parts Geek, Rock Auto, etc. But if you also want to get a better idea of what they look like and what you're looking for under the vehicle, these are the rear ones, which you can find online. They're about $30 if you need to replace them. I would try and clean them first, but again, if you can't clean them, or if they don't clean well, then go ahead and get them replaced. Alright, so we're back to the battery next day. I did charge it. I didn't charge it all the way, but I got it to around 12. So as you can see, it's disconnected. So if it's any lower than 12, then even without a draw, it is losing voltage, which would mean bad battery. So let me go ahead and connect it here. Yeah, 1128. So as you can see, it's showing as low. And so looks like it's just a bad battery. So there were a couple other things that I showed you that it could potentially be. I know it seems obvious that this is a bad battery based on what I showed you at the beginning of the video, just because, it wouldn't start at all. But I actually was having these issues even before the battery totally went flat. It would still start, but then it would give me all those errors. And that's just because it was on the cusp of starting to go bad. So those are some of the reasons why you'd still want to check some of these other things that I showed you in the video, but just based on what we've gone through, this appears to just be a bad battery. So we're going to go ahead and replace it. The other thing I do want to mention, just whenever you have any sort of electronic gremlin, is to check out recalls. So on these Blazers, specifically the EV version, there was an issue with the parking brake module, and that was actually causing a lot of the same issues that I was having. But for the most part, that was something that was really only related to the EV versions. But, sometimes things take a little longer to record, and, maybe the gas ones will also have those issues. So always double check your recalls just to make sure, if you have any of those issues, you can get them addressed right away. But I'm going to go ahead and change this battery, call it a day. But thank you very much for watching. Hopefully this was helpful. Feel free to like and subscribe, and I'll see you on the next one.